We are ready to go.
Let's do it.
Perfect. So I am sharing my screen with you guys. And before I get into the demo, a quick overview about Credo Lab. Um, we are a Singapore headquartered company. We've been in business for about close to 5 years now. What do? We harness the power of smartphone-based behavioral usage patterns to come up with a scoring framework that predicts probability of default. Now, what's so exciting about this? There have been many financially excluded or underserved individuals globally that are looking for credit on fair terms. The lenders, the banks, the new digital fintech lenders, they are all open to giving credit to them, but they do not have the right evaluation tools because the traditional sources of credit evaluation can only give you so much, and not everyone has a traditional credit bureau score available for evaluation. Step in CredoLab, we assess behavioral usage patterns where we try and understand based on their behavioral patterns, would the individual be able to repay the loan? So what I'm going to now show you here is a demo. It's a very simple demo in the sense because what we have is a user interface because we need to somehow get into the smartphone of the borrower. The traditional way of doing that is to integrate and embed our SDK into the mobile app of the lender so that the customer journey is absolutely seamless and frictionless. So when the end user is applying for a loan or submitting their request, at the same time of their request being submitted, they also give consent to CredoLab to collect that information, which is the metadata of the behavioral patterns, to help them be scored. Now, the demo that I'm going to be showing you is of a standalone app because we don't have a real banking app that I can show you because those assets are owned by the banks or lenders themselves. So I'm giving you a flow of how the app-based journey looks like and how the customer submits the information and we see the score come back in real time. So this is the mobile banking app that I'm sharing with you. So the bank code is D60. I have created some invite codes previously, and this invite code is very important to understand. The only way CredoLab identifies the unique record is through this unique code because we do not identify an individual record with their national ID, their phone number, or their name because they are all personally identifiable information. So each record that we collect has a unique identifier, which only the lender know whom it belongs to. CredoLab does not have access to that. So once we input this information, and as I said, in the real scenario, there would be no need to put this information because the process is seamless. We now go to the next screen. It clearly explains from a data privacy viewpoint that we would be collecting permissions. Why do we need those permissions and what are we going to do with them? Now, this is also one very important pillar of the CredoLab solution and the approach, that there needs to be absolute transparency with the end user in terms of what are we collecting, what do we do with them, and how does it benefit them. Now, these are the three key pillars for any data privacy regulatory framework, and we make sure we adhere to that. So we move ahead. Now, these are the specific pop-ups which come up on the screen for an individual to give consent. Now, these pop-ups are driven by Google's development platform policy. It's not a CredoLab or the bank's prerogative. It is what Google wants us to do. These permissions have to be asked for explicitly. The best part is that you could allow or deny. So let's say I deny this permission. I go to the next one. I'm okay with that. I allow this one as well. And I say, okay. Now, immediately it tells you, hey, very good. You have given some permissions you have not given. So right now, 83% of your information is accessible. Would you want to go back and give permission again or just skip it? You say, okay, I don't care. I'm fine. I'm going to skip this. Bingo. What happens is, this is what the person sees on the screen. Okay, thank you very much. Your credit report was submitted. Now, whom is the credit report submitted to? Of course, it is submitted to the bank, which has access to the dashboard, and on real-time basis, they see the information being submitted. So now record 242 is what got submitted 10:41 a.m. here in Singapore. This is the date and timestamp, date of today, and this is the device ID. Now the credit risk underwriter officer has this data available to them to see what do they need to do with it. So they would say, okay, this is a unique reference ID. This is the date and timestamp, the device ID, the device type, what were the permissions that were granted, and what is the score. So on this basis, they try and include this into their decisioning and modeling framework. Now, this is again one important point is that the CredoLab score primarily focuses on an individual's intent to repay because we are working mostly on behavioral data. We are not analyzing income data or earning capacity data. Means our focus is not on the ability to repay. It's more on the intent to repay. And this is where our score complements and does not intend to replace any existing credit framework or decisioning processes. Our score inputs into that, complements that decision making, and the lender or the bank now has a holistic view about a potential borrower in terms of what they are looking for. Now, this type of solution is extremely relevant and important for emerging economies because there is a big proportion of people which are outside the banking financial system. They do not get credit on fair terms. In some of these countries, the credit bureaus either do not exist or are negative credit bureaus. So there isn't enough information available about these individuals, but they could potentially be good borrowers. Traditional banks do not go after them because they feel they are taking too much risk. Whenever you talk to any of these lenders in these countries, they say, if we had the right tools, we would love to extend credit to them. The same solution is being used in developed economies where this is being used for risk-based pricing. So where they complement our score to see if someone has a strong ability to repay, but also demonstrates a good, strong intent to repay, I would have relationship-based pricing or better pricing for them for us not to lose those customers. Now, in all this process, I would like to re-emphasize one more point, is that we collect, process, and store no personally identifiable information. Based on the permissions granted, we collect about 50,000 data points from the smartphone. Our output file, the JSON file is only 50 kilobyte. That reinforces the point no actual data ever leaves the phone. Otherwise, the JSON file wouldn't be a 50 kilobyte. The metadata that we collect is stored on a cloud server. We work closely with Microsoft Azure, and the client gets the score back in real time, either on the dashboard, as I demonstrated to you right now, or through an API interface back into their decision management system. On the way, our data science team and our proprietary machine learning algorithm converts the 50,000 data points into millions of features, and we match those features with the behavioral features exhibited by defaulting customers. So if an applicant is already demonstrating some behavioral patterns which are commonly exhibited by defaulters, we can use that to predict what's the likelihood this individual would default. So a very simple product to demonstrate, but a lot goes behind the screen in terms of data science, feature engineering, ability to identify the most predictive patterns which have the highest discriminatory power. That means they help us identify a good from a bad, and real-time submission of scores. This product is very well used in scenarios where you have to take an instant decision, not in probably mortgages where you have a lot more offline assessment to be done, but these are for short-term loans, for buy now, pay later, e-commerce spending, e-wallet. So these are the type of frameworks where quick decisioning, where it reduces the time to yes, increases the approval ratio, but at the same time contains the non-performing loans of a particular lender. This is what CredoLab does. We now have 86 clients in 26 countries using our product. And that's a quick one from my side, and I believe we have had quite some questions coming into the chat, and Sean would have answered them. If not, we would pick them up in the breakout session. Ben, back to you. I hope I've been able to cover most of the important aspects of our solution.